Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Tier List Review. My name is Mecca, and we're going to look at my FE8 tier list, continue to look at my FE8 tier list. Last time we discussed elaborately the units in S, A, and B tier currently. These should be in the right positions. I don't remember if anyone else is going to be moving up here, but it should be roughly finished. And today we're going to go over to C, D, E, and F tier, or maybe a little bit less than that, depends on the time. And just like last time, with me is Jumpy23 here to provide extra context and knowledge. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm ready for another round. I did some more thinking about the lower tiers after our break last time, and yeah, I'm excited.
Good. So, do we just want to take it from the top again, like from the top of whatever your list is going to be? Just kind of go from there? That seems fine to me. We have a big C tier list though, so I'm looking forward to shuffling this up a little bit.
A lot of those guys are going to be dropping out, but someone who is not is Artur.
Artur, alright, he's right here. Alright.
Yeah.
Come
So, honestly, Artur might deserve to be B tier because he's pretty good, but I just hate him on a personal level.
The Forde problem. Alright.
Yes. So, like, what he generally does, or what he's thought to do, right, is staff utility, but you have to promote him to get that, and you really have to grind super hard to promote him.
Yeah.
Because he gets C staves, and you have to really be mashing staves every single turn.
Yeah.
And he's just such a sweaty unit to use, and he has 2 luck and a 25% luck growth. So
like every enemy can crit it,
yeah, in addition to, like, I have to really try so hard to get this guy combat. It's like every time I get this guy combat, I'm risking resetting the game.
Yeah, I usually find when I was training him for various playthroughs, including that 100% gross playthrough, is like, if he gets to combat, it's not that hard to get him to the one combat or something, but the moment he takes the hit, he dies to every next attack, right? So you really have to be very careful, like heal him every turn, or have him hit a guy from range. He doesn't one round either because life magic is awful at base, and his magic isn't good enough to one round.
12 attack with D Light Tome, and anything heavier than, I think, it's either Shine or Lightning, but like only the very weak Light Tomes don't weigh him down significantly. So his combat is pretty mediocre despite his decent looking bases, and then yeah, he just can get crit at any time.
Yeah, but I do find that, I'm sorry for keep interrupting you, we'll get used to this, I'm sure. I do find though that it's preferable, like I've always found Artur easier to get to level 10 than Molder, personally, because every round of combat is like 30 XP if you give him a kill, right? Whereas Molder gets like 12 per turn max with Mend. Obviously Molder has a later benchmark to promoting because you don't really care when he promotes exactly, but I just always found that funny because XP gain is so trash for stabs.
Yeah, the thing with Molder is you don't even have to promote him until like super late game to get Latona. So Warp gives 85 XP per use, and he can hit A staves before he promotes, unlike Artur, right?
Yeah.
So you just get him to Warp, and then you use Warp like 3 or 4 times in chapters 16 and 17, and then boom, he's level 10.
True.
So yeah, Molder is like, he doesn't promote, but it doesn't matter. Whereas Artur, you need to promote him by like chapter 10.
Yeah, because then he's not even there yet. He still needs to get to A. That's true.
Right. So, but while I hate using Artur, he does have a lot of upside. So we need to talk about that and why he's still decently ranked. And Artur, I think, is a unit that has been super overrated because of 100% growths. Like maybe even more so than Franz.
You're welcome.
Might be the unit that's most boosted by the 100% growths context, because then you're like, you know, ZOMG, this guy has great combat and he has 25 magic for warp. But realistically, like, you can get Artur to warp, but he's gonna have maybe 6 or 7 range. So what he is not is like some Ephraim Route version of Saleh.
Yeah, basically that's where you use him, right? Because if you're an Erica route, you already have Saleh.
Well, you use him on Erica Route too in like 100% growth context, because that way you have 2 Salehs. Or on incomplete recruitment, you don't have time to get Saleh to warp, so you have to use Artur as your Saleh. But what he is like a second Molder, which is still super good. There are like random niche places that the Chungler has found in his efficiency playthroughs where like 6 or 7 warp range over 5 actually like does matter. So for example, if you want to get an 8-move unit to fight Orson, you need just a little more warp range than 5. Your boots up Seth or Cormag or whatever can just move with 10 move and hit Orson, but if you want to get like a secondary boss killer up there because Orson's a pain in the butt, you need Artur's little extra warp range.
Oh, so it's like a reliability boost then, instead of like, you need this to LTC.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's good. That's
yeah.
nice.
There's also, so in the last video we did, I was like super hung up on 10 range Saleh for getting Myrrh to Leon on turn 1. And after the video, because you had pressed me on like, do you really need this? I like sat down and I looked at the tiles and I realized on Erica route, like even if you never bother getting Artur to warp because you're grinding Saleh instead, you can get him to rescue quite easily. And with like a 7 range rescue from Artur, you don't need 10 warp on Saleh for the like 1 turn Myrrh Donks Leon kill thing. So that's good news if you were like really, oh, I don't want to use my energy rings on Saleh. But also that's like just the sort of thing Artur can do with just like pretty solid staff utility. And then the other big thing that I haven't even mentioned yet, despite it probably being Artur's biggest selling point, is he has Slayer and Erica route for chapters 11 and 12, which are the 2 monster routes, the one in the Fog of War map and then the Mountain Hell.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Like, does Slayer matter at all for you? That's just staff utility, because I do remember in those maps like you have to route the whole thing, so Artur can probably do something. Although he can't really enemy phase more than like 2 or 3 enemies max, I think. So you have to be a bit careful.
Right. So he's not useful, like, or Slayer isn't useful at all on Ephraim Route because the only monster route map is the Phantom Ship, and the benchmarks there are super low because it's like Bone Walkers and Moguls.
Yeah, that too.
But on Erica Route, you have a bunch of Gargoyles and a bunch of Muth Dogs, and Slayer is actually really helpful for taking those out. Because Artur like straight up one shots a Muth Dog with however much might he has.
You bring a higher my tome, right? And just one shot.
Right. Gargoyles, I don't think he can one shot, but still, those things are hard to take out. And so Artur really helps on those 2 maps with Slayer.
Yeah, I feel like Gargoyles, depending on their weapon, there might be the kind of enemy where you go like, okay, maybe I can kill with lightning. Oh, just not enough damage. Maybe I can kill with divine. It just doesn't one shot. He doesn't double anymore. That's the kind of feeling I get with Artur a lot. Like you said earlier, because everything weighs him down that isn't lightning. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it depends on like his level and everything.
Yeah, and I'm not the super Erica route expert, so I won't, I'm deferring to judgment here, but like Jelly Unicorn was very much high on Artur for his ability in those 2 maps. All right. Next unit. I think we're good with Artur.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. All right. That's good.
Forde. Sorry, Mecca.
Veto this vote. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I understand. I understand. He's got to go somewhere that isn't F tier.
Right. Yeah. So the thing is, he's really not that much worse than Kyle and Franz. Like, I told you what those guys do in the mid game in the last video, and it's a bunch of stuff where combat benchmarks don't really matter that much. There's no reason to use him over Kyle and Franz. Like, none whatsoever. So he's supposed to be like the quote-unquote reliability cav, right? He's got like skill and luck. But here's the thing, is his other stats are so bad, he's actually less reliable. For example, if you want to one-shot or one-round soldiers in Chapter 9 of Ephraim Route, there's a very good chance that Forde can't do it with an Iron Lance. Because he needs to level strength like twice. And so then he has to use a Steel Lance, which weighs him down and reduces his hit. Whereas Kyle can do it with an Iron Lance from base, because he has 2 more strength. So Forde actually ends up being like the least reliable Cavalier, despite that supposedly being his specialization. Like, another example is the Chapter 13 Mage I talked about. Kyle can use a Javelin. Forde has to use the Short Spear, which has 5 less hit. And you only get 1 Short Spear, and now nobody else can use it. So, yeah. Like, he's slightly worse, but he's really not worse enough that I can justify, throwing him in F tier or anything, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to. So, the most I could justify was this much lower than Kyle and Franz.
That's fair. I'm happy that you're not moving forward any more further up than this, and I don't want him to move further up than this, but I have one question before we move on to the next one.
All right.
What about his sword rank and the fact that he gets closer to using Killing Edge? Because sometimes people bring that up.
Wait, is he? I thought he and Kyle both had D swords.
I think they do. I just remember Forde being closer for some reason. Maybe they have the same rank. Maybe it's just compared to Franz that he has a better Killing Edge rank. I can check
right.
It
is. I have their stats up. It's
okay.
Forde and Kyle both have D swords, and Franz, of course, starts with E. Now, the reason people might say that is because Forde promotes faster sometimes, and promotion gives 30 sword rank, or because he starts with the steel sword, and Kyle starts with an iron sword in 5x. So maybe you're just more likely to use Forde for sword combat.
Possibly. I actually like Kyle with the steel sword more because he doesn't get weighed down.
Yes.
Alright, fair. Who's next? Fuck Forde.
Yeah. Next, I have Dussel.
I was wondering when he was coming. I was half expecting him in B tier, but I guess Artur Route exists, and then he's good, but he's got some shortcomings. That's kind of the way I can only sum up to Dussel. Is like good combat with 6 move and like super heavy.
Right. So yeah, there's a lot to say about Dussel. So I want to point out this is our first like combat unit since Seth. That is how overpowering Seth is for the FE8 metagame.
Are you saying the first or the best combat unit? Because
like everyone else here is some sort of utility. They like fly or they run around the map really fast or whatever.
I wouldn't say Cormac is not a combat unit. Let me just put it that way.
You're right. Cormac is definitely a combat unit, but like he has better movement type than Seth, right?
Yes.
Dussel is the first guy here who's like, oh, I'm using him when Seth doesn't have enough combat.
Yeah.
Which, frankly, Seth has better combat than Dussel, but sometimes he can't be in 2 places at once. Yeah, he's irrelevant on Artur Route almost entirely. He just doesn't join with like enough time left in the game to matter, because he only matters before you get warp. After you've gotten warp, Dussel, and anybody with 6 move almost, just moves too slow to keep up with the ridiculous pace of like, yeah, I have boots on Seth and I'm warping and dancing him and crossing the 21 turns or the 21 tiles it takes to kill Leon on turn 1.
Yeah.
Like Dussel can't keep up with that.
Yeah, I've sometimes had a feeling that maybe I could be using units more in like the Gorgonite map. That's like one map where I think these kind of units can maybe be kind of relevant because you need to spread out units so much. But even when I've tried using units like Inez, Garcia mostly, not Noel because he has more movement effectively with the Phantoms, but everyone else with like roughly that movement, this ends up falling behind because there's a couple turns where you just move without stopping, basically, without stopping to kill enemies. So you just kind of amplify your movement advantage over a couple turns. And someone like Dussel just gets left behind, which is stupid because 6 moves should be enough, but it sometimes isn't. That's the best map, I think, for non-super high move units.
Right. Yeah, which is something that I want to talk about with FE8 because I don't think I really touched on it in the last video, is how cleanly this game splits into 3 sections. There's like the early game, which is up through chapter 8, and the mid game, which is 9 through 15, and then the late game, which is 16 through final. And the way those chapters break down is early game is before the route split. Chapter 8 is the Seas map where you meet up with Ephraim. And then the mid game is up through till you get warped. And then the late game is after that. And almost nobody is good in more than one section of the game. So, like, everybody who gets used throughout the whole game, we've already tiered. Everybody else, like, they're only going to be good for 5 or 6 maps. So, Dussel being good for 5 or 6 maps is like, yeah, that's where you go if that's what you are. And generally, people consider the mid game to be the hardest bit. So being good in the mid game is more valuable than being good in the early game or the late game, where you can just stomp with Seth.
I like that idea. I like the way of putting that. I'm still irked by the fact that he's lower than Forde, but with Erica Route weighing him down and he's not being there for those maps where he's really good, that's honestly still really high when you consider that.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
I
he's
would
just that
absolutely
strong.
put him in B tier on Ephraim Route, but in Erica Route he's almost F tier. He's like low E because he just does nothing at all.
Yeah, I like him in his joining chapter a little bit for like killing some enemies, especially if you don't know how to route before the reinforcements come in. He's really handy to
Right.
just clean up everything. But he
That
has
is
like, no
true.
ability.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing about Erica Route Dusel is like he can't use Garm in chapter 15.
Yeah,
Like
that
in Ephraim
sucks.
Route, he just absolutely tears up that map with Garm. But in Erica Route, he only has 12 speed, or maybe he gets a few auto levels, but he's not going to have enough speed to like double promoted enemies. And he's not hitting quite as hard, although Silver Axe Dusel still hits quite hard. But
Yeah, no, don't get me
yeah.
wrong. It's super hard, and he's super tanky. Like he's one of the most reliable units in the whole game. I feel like with that regard, and the
Oh,
speed
absolutely.
is annoying. But I think there's a lot of spots where you can just ignore Dussel's speed, either because the enemies are so slow, like on Phantom Ship, or because
Right.
you have Garm, so you can just double things anyway with +5 speed, or even like well, this game doesn't really do brave weapons that well, but if it did, that'd be another way, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, thinking of Dusel's bulk, because that's absolutely something I want to touch on. Dusel
Yeah.
is the only unit in the game who can survive a combat with Foe Mortiz at base.
Garrick needs a robe then.
Yeah, Garrick needs a robe, and everybody else basically needs speed
Yeah.
boosters.
Like you can meme on like the Demon King all you want, but he does have it requires some really high benchmarks in that regard.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not memeing on Demon King. He's a real threat.
Mhm.
Like, I think people underestimate how hard he is to kill reliably.
Well, I think most people when they play FE8 casual, they'll have a full team with like everyone using one sacred weapon, and then he's really easy. Like if you have like a level 20 Joshua, like yeah, of course he's gonna be really easy.
Okay, yeah.
But when you're
Fair
doing
enough.
but every time I play with like a more efficiently styled team with like one carry that does almost everything, they alone cannot kill the Demon King. You need like 2 or 3 people generally,
Right.
or
Yeah,
a dance of some kind.
Yeah, you can do like 80 damage with Garrick or whatever, but who's gonna do the last 40? Because everybody just dies because the Demon King doubles them. So that's where Dusel comes in. Is you can just be like, yeah, here's a dude who does 20 damage to the Demon King, and I didn't have to invest in him to do that. And Mur is like the only other unit who can do that, but she will die on the counter, so she has to get the final hit.
I think almost everyone in their life has at one point played Ephraim routes, gone to the Demon King, and they almost kill him. And then it's like, oh, I have one unit left to do this with. Oh, it's Erica. If she misses, she dies. Do I do it or not? I think everyone has been in that spot at least once.
Yeah, I mean, you saw my LTC, right?
That's true. You did it there too. That's true. I was mostly thinking of the other draft racers, but that's fair too.
Right. So yeah, things that Dusel like can really do is like the chapter 10 boss kill. I want to talk about like his specific contributions now,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we've talked about his general strengths enough. Chapter 10 on Ephraim Route, that boss is just, oh, he's so annoying. He's ridiculously impossible to kill, but
Baron,
he
I
holds
think
a
is his
Lance
name.
Reaver. Yeah,
Yeah.
Baron. But Dusel can just silver axe him in the face because he uses a Lance Reaver or a longbow. And that, like, you don't have any other good axe users at that point. So unless you're using the Axe Reaver, I guess, then Dusel is just like your one good boss killer there. Phantom Ship, right? So you've mentioned this before, but there is that famous low man strat on Phantom Ship where you just undeploy everybody but Dusel and Seth.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Ephraim.
every time someone asked like, "Hey, I'm having trouble with Phantom Ship," dude, just undeploy all your units except Dusel, Seth, and Ephraim.
Right. I think that totally works. I think Phantom Ship's difficulty is overstated, and I would rather recommend people spam the Torch Staff over the water so you don't get sniped by Moguls, because it's such a good opportunity to train your weak units that I hate recommending doing that, but it's totally a viable strategy, right?
Yeah,
But even if you're spamming Torch and then like giving Vanessa and Tana 3 levels each on Moguls, like you still love using Dusel on the boat full of enemies.
yeah, I mean, it speaks to it that a player at any level can deploy Dusel there and get great success. I think the thing with Phantom Ship is it's less about, I think, undeploying everyone, and maybe undeploy someone like Joshua, in my opinion, is really the big liability there. Like, just sitting there taking hits from Moguls without countering and clogging up everything is really the big changing there. And anyone else who's like too fragile to really help, like someone like Lute or Artur. Artur, I guess, can be alright because he has Slayer and Weapon Triangle and everything like that. Lute, I think, is like, depending on her level, honestly, I would recommend undeploying her too. If you have like an underleveled, it's like someone like Colm is total garbage there. Gilliam can be good, like, depends on the units. But
I will say when I Iron Manned FE8, I lost Artur on Phantom Ship because he fought one Mogul and got crit.
I mean, that's how my Boulder died. He got crit by a Gargoyle just randomly.
Right.
But yeah, Phantom Ship, he's good. Just he tanks enemies, kills and tombs
Chapter
in one
15,
round.
Yeah. Chapter 15's the other like huge Dussel contribution because Valter's group is so dense, and you just give Dussel Garm and just park him in a throng of enemies and watch them all evaporate. It's absolutely the most satisfying feeling in the world. Like, oh yeah, he can easily enemy phase 7 Wyverns, like a Paladin, 3 Fighters on the same enemy phase because he has like 41 HP and 17 defense at base, and he has like 17 speed and 37 attack with Garm.
Yeah, his avoid is amazing, and because after that he basically vanishes from the whole map, it's okay if you almost completely use up Garm there anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you need a couple uses after that. Like, if you save 5 or 10 uses after that, you have enough for the rest of the game with ease.
Absolutely.
You'll have leftover probably, but I'm just thinking like, okay, maybe you'll have him hit the Demon King a couple times, and then maybe a Gorgon egg for fun.
Right. Or a actual Gorgon, or I don't know. Just, some random thing in chapter 18 or 20, or maybe he kills a general in chapter 19 if you don't have warp, so that you can get to Riev.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and that's the map you get the Garm, so you're guaranteed to have 30 uses around, so it's totally okay.
Right.
Okay, so Dussel good, and after that he just vanishes, right? He just kind of stops contributing.
All right, so after Dussel, let's tier Erica Route Dussel. Can you guess? Can you guess what I mean?
He's right here, isn't he?
Absolutely.
I mean, people say he is, but I know you disagree, right?
No, I think he's pretty much Erica Route Dussel.
That's fair.
I don't think he's good on Ephraim Route.
Or
I don't think he's great on Ephraim Route.
I know
I think
Pete
he's
really
been
hates this guy.
Yeah, so he's got decent 6-move combat, right?
Yeah.
And he's got like 15 speed, 15 attack, 15 strength.
For the record, if you start at the base, you just promote him to hero right away. That's it, right? That's all you do. Yeah.
Generally, but there is some nuance with that I want to talk about. Okay. So the canonical way to use Garrick on Erica Route is like you insta promote him to hero, and then you just go to town with hand axes, and eventually you hit S rank axes, and then you Garm in the late game.
Mm-hmm.
So for the same reason that I don't think Garm in the late game matters for Dussel, I don't think it matters for Garrick. Which I actually haven't really talked about. So just quickly, people historically have said, use Garm on Leon or Morva or Orson, like all these really awful, annoying, difficult to kill late game bosses. But the thing is, for like Orson and Leon 1 in chapters 16 and 17, move is really important because the longer you take to get to these bosses, the more painful it is to reset when they crit you. And so you want someone like Seth who can just zoom up to them and then take a fairly reliable boss kill with like the Lance Reaver on Orson or the Spear on Leon. And then if you have to reset on turn 1 or 2, whatever. That's better than taking like 6 turns to trundle your Garm Garrick up there and then you get crit anyway. So then the later late game bosses like Morva or Foam Ortiz, the thing is Garm only has 75 hit, which sounds like a lot, but these dudes are really freaking dodgy. Foam Ortiz has like 19 speed and like 17 luck. So you're still hitting like 70s hit rate with Garm. Whereas Myrrh has a weapon with 124 innate hit.
Manakete moment.
So, right. So like, Garm kind of just gets obsoleted on either end of the late game boss killing by that.
Yeah.
So without by Seth and then Myrrh. So without those things, like, why do you need Garm on Erica Route? You really don't. Now, Hero Garrick is still great to have for chapters 11 and 12, which are those annoying monster routes. And you can actually also do funny things with Ranger Garrick on chapter 12, because like chapter 11 drops a longbow. Do you have to ECG the longbow? I don't think you do, but the last time I watched a FE8
I don't
Garrick route playthrough,
remember,
it used
but
ECG.
I'm pretty sure you get a longbow at some point, because I remember using it with Inez in like even chapter 11 maybe.
Right. Yeah, I
might be wrong, though.
think it's in chapter 11 they drop the longbow. So
Oh, I think there's
So,
a
yeah.
I think there's a bone walker that you can kill with the silver bow, and you can get the longbow right away. That might be it.
yes, that's what I thought. I just didn't quite remember if you needed to ECG it. So yeah, that is how I feel
get
about Garm. But then, so the funny thing about once we were in the efficiency Discord, once we were like, maybe Garm's not that good. Then someone was like, what if we did Holma Garrick instead? So the idea, right? The idea is Kellic in chapter 15, the hero boss is like he's really hard to kill. And you want Seth and Vanessa to be running south and taking on Valter's group, which is generally the harder group to take on. So what if we gave Garrick a Holma and just let him solo Kellic's group because he's got the stats to do it? So the struggle here is Garrick needs speed levels to double Kellic.
Oh yeah,
In which
like
case,
30 growth, I think.
Yeah, 30% growth. And if you insta promote him, he maybe levels like once or twice, and he needs 2 speed levels to double Kellic. So then the thought was, what if we left Garrick unpromoted?
Yeah.
For a significant portion of the mid game, and then promoted him after chapter 13, which is the super boring defend where you're just waiting for Cormag, and you get plenty of levels on whoever you want. And then he easily takes out Kellic with the Atholma. So that's another thing Garrick can do. That's a totally different way to use him, but equally valid. You miss out on having him quite so much for the monster routes, although unpromoted Garrick is still decent there.
Yeah, he still one-rounds a couple enemies, I think, depending on what you put him up against. Like, he's obviously going to one-round, like, Renevants and, like, Moguls, if you don't need to counter them or stuff like that.
Right.
Just know when to.
Yeah. I mean, Garrick's just, like, a super interesting unit because he's got these stats, and there's so many different ways to use him, and all of them have their strengths and weaknesses.
Cool.
But, yeah. The reason that I have him below Dusel is probably just Ephraim Route bias, if I'm being honest. You talked in our last video about how you have like 0% or 100% bias.
A little bit. I try to shut it off, but without other experiences, that's all I have to remember. But
you're always thinking in that context, and then you try and mentally adjust for it, but maybe you don't mentally adjust enough. And that's how I feel about Garrick and Dusel. Like, maybe Garrick's better than Dusel, but I'm an Ephraim Route stan, and so I like Dusel better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will say I think it hurts Dusel, like Garrick, slightly that he's good for that mid game stretch as well, but I think he gets one less chapter basically, because chapter 10 you don't get Garrick in efficiency, you just get the boss and then you're done.
Right.
And then
then
he's good for like 2 route maps, which I guess Dusel only has. Well, he has 13 and he has 11. So I guess there's still 2 route maps there, and they're both good in 15 in their own little ways. So it's tough to balance. I do think Dusel is a bit more busted in Phantom Ship than Garrick is on either of his route maps. He's just a good router, but Dusel's durability I think really stands out to me. So
yeah,
I'm okay with
absolutely.
This way. I could see the other way around if you have a good argument against it, but this is I actually don't mind this personally.
The other way around is mostly just like Erica Dusel worthless, Ephraim Garrick mediocre.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it, because he's only in 13, which is a lot better than Dusel's 15.
Yeah.
He's actually not bad in 13, just unreliable.
Yeah, I hate his reliability in 13. You're either using like a steel blade or the steel axe because nothing else kills enemies.
Yeah,
and then you have like
by the way
78 hit. Oh, but yeah. Anyway, whoever placed the enemies in that map's a dick, because it's like you enemy phase a steel lance cav and a steel sword cav on the same enemy phase with a dude who uses either swords or axes.
Yeah.
Great.
I remember having fun with that. There's like a fighter up there that you can trick into using his halberd if you're a ranger, stuff like that. It's kind of
right.
fun.
Yeah. Of course, you can trick him into using your halberd if you're a ranger and you're playing a rigged LTC, but if you're playing casually, that's not getting That's not tricking him to using his halberd.
Oh, look, he joins on turn 1, so even if you're playing casually, he's reset, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, and in my defense, my LTC, I just made him a hero like a normal person, okay?
Right. Wait, you did? I swear you made him a ranger.
Maybe I did
for
ranger.
Longbow.
Either way, he
Ranger
didn't
for-
do much.
Right, ranger for longbow and egg map.
Maybe. I don't even remember if I used him there. I just did it because it could
yeah.
kill the fighter that way. And like, oh, I wanted the amount of movement. I think it was just the amount of movement that I wanted at that point.
Right. Anyway, that's Garrick.
Yeah.
So, I twitched a little earlier when you were talking about units to undeploy in Phantom Ship because my next unit is Joshua.
I mean, I don't think you undeployed him. You could probably see why I said undeploy Joshua, right?
Right, because he can't counter Moguls. But here's the thing, is like, gargoyles are cracked.
They're stupid.
Fighters and brigands are cracked, right? And Joshua kills both of those and he does it for free. And so there's a ton of maps where that's really, really relevant because like even Seth has trouble taking on gargoyles because maybe he doesn't double them. You need like 14 speed to double them. And if your Seth gets speed screwed, that might not happen. But like Josh, yeah, easy. And Phantom Ship, I used him to take out like every gargoyle on that map. Now granted, I was playing 0% and my Seth could not double gargoyles. And he does get like maybe 7 or 8 levels by then and he only needs to level speed twice, but it can happen. I don't know. Maybe this is 0% bias, but
I think it might be a little bit. It depends a bit for me, like who else is going to go here, because right now it looks like he's going to be tiered over a couple units with like 1-2 range. I do think there's a niche for Joshua because of a lot of the units that we've called good at combat so far. A lot of them don't really have good speed. Like Seth, like Vanessa's not being trained, for example. Tana, I guess. Seth is like speed is good. He's not doubling at 0% against gargoyles, but generally it's good enough to double. Like I've seen him double mercenaries if you just train him up enough. All these other guys, they don't have any speed to speak of, or like barely not enough. Like Garrick, Dussel, even like the 3 Cavs, or even Cormac, they're like average to good speed, but generally not good enough to double everything. Whereas Joshua just doubles everything ever.
Exactly. And yeah, speed, another use of Joshua's speed that we found is Kellic again.
Oh yeah.
So I talked about, you could use Garrick to take on Kellic, but then you can't promote him immediately. So the trouble with Erica Route Joshua generally has been like, you don't get your second hero crest until chapter 14. And like Garrick has dibs on the first one.
Yeah.
You'd almost be silly not to use it on him. Yeah. So you can promote Joshua right before chapter 15, and then he's 30 sword XP away from using on Holma because promotion gives 40 sword XP. And he just walks over and solos Kellic's group just as easily as Garrick because it's all 1 range attackers. There's like no 2 range there.
Well, with
unlike
there's a couple mages there, but it's mostly Myrmidons and fighters though.
There's 2 shamans.
Yeah, but it's 2 magical enemies like in a corner, right? And then there's like a Luna Shaman there that you don't really have to care about if you don't want to.
Right. So then you get S rank swords, literally like as you're approaching Kellic, and then you just dunk on him with Holma, and unlike Garrick, you easily double him. So this lets you use Hero Garrick in chapters 11 and 12, or Ranger Garrick if you're feeling a little spicy, and then you still get to easily take on Kellic with Joshua because his speed is so good. And unlike like every other unit from the early game that we've talked about, Joshua does not steal XP because he gets XP for free. Like you have to set up kills for Vanessa or Franz or Artur, but Joshua just like doubles and kills things on his own. It's great. He's just like, oops, I'm accidentally level 14.
I was gonna ask because I remember being very careful to train Joshua on my run because I was training Franz, Vanessa, Artur, and Ross in my early game.
Right.
That was pretty tight partially because they had to get kills set up for them. Whereas Joshua was like, you have to hold him back not to get kills. But if he's fighting things that other people don't care about, then it's just completely fine. Just let him go off on his own. Like he can take on a couple fighters very reliably without having to worry about surviving or anything. He's pretty dodgy-ish against fighters. and like
He's
terrain.
actually fairly bulky too.
Yeah,
and
he's
fairly
he's
strong.
not bad.
Like the only real problem with him is 6 move 1 range.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you talked about that, and yeah, if you're trying to raise like every early game shitter in the entire game, then the trouble is just having enough enemy units on the map to apportion to Joshua. But if you're doing like something more reliable, the trouble is, feeding kills reliably to the 1 or 2 units that you can afford to feed. You're not feeding Vanessa and Franz and Artur and Ross. You're like, I'm going to feed like Vanessa and Artur, and I'm going to use Franz to set up the kills, and Ross can eat shit. And then Joshua can just kill whoever he wants because there's enough units for him to do that.
For sure.
Joshua is someone that like every time I think about the game more, I like him more.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fun because like the first order evaluation of Joshua is definitely FE8 has weak enemies. Why do I need a Swordmaster? Swordmasters thrive when enemies are actually hard to kill.
Well, there are some hard to kill enemies. There's just not that many of them, but it's good against
Exactly.
those. Yeah, I agree.
But he's just good at killing the few enemies that are hard to kill.
Yeah, definitely. I think and the more like you introduce reliability to it as opposed to how quickly can I kill this game if I get super lucky, the more he comes into the picture, I think. Because I'm looking at the units below Joshua, and like I can see drawbacks to all the units here that I think you could argue put them below them. So I don't mind this position much. There's like one unit I can think of that maybe belongs above Joshua, and that's Ephraim.
Well, funny you should say that because Ephraim was next.
Good.
Yeah, I had originally, when I was talking over this with Chungler and Jelly Unicorn, etc., I had put Ephraim in D because I was trying to counteract my Ephraim bias. And I was like, yeah, he's good on Ephraim Route, but like he's almost worthless on Erica Route. But Chungler was like, no, move him up to C. So here he is. This one's not my fault like Dusel was.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's so good on Ephraim Route. I mean, like he's not really that good because he has 5 move and he can't promote until super late, but his combat is insane.
I don't even mind his 5 move that much personally, because I think with the Ephraim especially, even if he had more move, sometimes you just don't want to expose him to more enemies, so it's like you have to be a bit careful with him anyway. I never want him to be the one in Seth's position to be Seth, because like his combat is good, but he's not Seth, so you have to be a bit more rationed with him. But I do agree, I always call him like Raven with lances because his offense is that good.
Yeah, that's about right, I would say. Except for unlike Raven, he has a Regan Leaf.
Yeah, God, it's a stupid weapon. I don't know what
the Regan Leaf is hilarious. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know the stats of Regan Leaf off the top of your head like I do, it has 8 weight, so it doesn't weigh Ephraim down. It has 10 might, and it has like 85 hit, and it's effective on Knights and Cavaliers. So he just one-shots Cavs and Knights in the mid-game with the Regan Leaf. And then even if it's not effective, like this is the might of a Steel Lance with the hit and weight of an Iron Lance.
It's just so good all around. And it's triple effectiveness too, instead of like Hector's stupid Wolf Beal with double might. Like Hector's like struggling to one-shot Cavs in his game, which has like, I think it has a little bit slightly weaker Cavalier sometimes even. And everyone's like just overkilling them in the base level.
Right. So like I talked about how Joshua is good because only he can take on fighters and gargoyles. Except for like your super units, but you want them to be doing other things. Ephraim's the same way. We're like, yeah, I could kill a knight with Seth, but if Seth's busy, like Ephraim's one of the few dudes who can actually do it. Or a Cavalier. Cavaliers are hard to kill in this game. But not if you have Ephraim.
Yeah, it helps that the Regan Leaf is like just like an FE7 in a lot of ways. It's effective against a lot of these bosses. Although a lot of them you probably won't face with Ephraim, but in a more casual playthrough, for example, he just won around Selena. Probably at base level she has bolting equipped, but even at not base level, obviously it's very easy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't rate one-rounding Selena that high because like Cormac can do it too. True. But yeah, like Vigard, you can totally take on Vigard with Ephraim. And Vigard's actually really hard to kill.
Yeah. I've just speaking more like maybe from Draft Race experience that like Vigard and Forde both have these inherent like slight chances to just screw you over with RNG with crits and like maybe Pierce.
Yeah.
But Ephraim can survive that or avoid crit almost entirely. At least in normal
Yeah,
mode.
he has enough luck growth that like with Tethys' goddess icon, he can probably take on Vigard with 0 crit.
Kind of busted. I think the main reason to have Ephraim quote unquote this low is one Erica route where he's there for chapter 8 for self-improvement. And then he's chapter 15 onwards, it's kind of There's probably things you can do that you'll probably elaborate on, but it's not nearly as much for him to do in the whole game. And then just late promotion in general is kind of shame.
Yeah, and having to seize is like a bother because like oftentimes he can't enemy phase because a cavalier is holding him. Right?
Yeah. True.
But yeah, so talking of late game, like yeah, he has the 15 mounted aid and the force deploy. So for chapter 18, for example, he has 7 move, and this game's really stingy on mounts. So having 7 move is actually like pretty good. Like when Elliewood has 7 move in FE7, you're like, great, what the hell am I supposed to do with it? But in FE8, having 7 move is actually kind of nice. And then, for example, in Final, he has that really good deploy slot in Final 2. So if you attack, say, Foam Ortiz with Garrick, and then you need to rescue Garrick out of the way, Ephraim can just walk up and pick him up, and nobody else can do that.
Would you rather have Ephraim attack though, if he's like properly trained, because Sigmund is just so ridiculously strong as well?
Well, if he survives a round of combat.
Yeah. Which I think using Erica Route, if you like insta promote an auto level with Ephraim, he might or might not. I know if he's trained in Ephraim Route, he definitely does.
Yes, he needs 15 or 16 speed is the like threshold, and without at base he has 13 after promotion. I'm not sure how many auto levels Erica Route gives him, but I don't think it's probably enough.
Yeah, I think it auto levels your lords to a certain level, up to a certain maximum. I always forget what it is.
Right. Though then again, he's probably getting some speed levels in Chapter 5X. So, yeah. If Ephraim survives around a combat with Fom, you should probably just attack with him. Which is also something nice that he can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, just pluses all the way around.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's... And he has Javelins, right? Like, you said Raven, but he has Javelins before promotion.
Yeah, right away. He doesn't get a second weapon ever, but it's great because Lances are like one of the better weapons to have anyway. It's fine.
Right.
Javelins are nice. He doesn't get weighed down a little bit, but generally he's fine.
Yeah. So that's my whole C tier.
Oh, that's what I thought. I was like, I don't think Lutz is making it here. So unless you have like Dazla up here, I don't think anyone else is gonna be up here. So it's gonna be a moving down party from here, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Here. Although you're a mind reader because Dazla is in fact the next unit, but he's top of D in my opinion.
Ah, I see how it is. That's fair. Dazla is. I had a good way to describe him. I guess it's like a little bit of like Dussel with better terrain walking, but worse everything. Right. Or like Garcia, but as a pre-promotes, or that's about it. That's like all I could use to describe Dazla, I think. I think he has his uses. They're just like very niche because the speed is just so bad.
I've thought about the Dussel comparison before, and it's a decent comparison. Like Dussel, who will never double anything and dies in fewer hits. But I think a better way to think about Dazla is just as his own man. He's good on one map in each route, right? Because he has Berserker terrain data.
Yeah.
So
which I think is really good. Just not useful enough to put someone higher than this.
Right. So in Chapter 12, Erica, the mountain map, and in Chapter 13, Ephraim, the river map. Like Berserker terrain data is so good to have, and that's like the hardest map on each route. So just being good on one map that is the hardest map in each route is like really nice to have. And he's like at least okay-ish in other maps because like he doesn't die that quick and he does decent damage. But like he's not going to impress you except for his ability to walk on a mountain and kill a spider, or like walk across a river and like take drop a fat unit. Right?
Yeah. I think one problem I've had with Dazla when I'm trying to route maps is that he will fight an enemy, and then either due to his unreliable accuracy or because he doesn't double, he ends up not killing them in one round. Usually like two shots most enemies. And then usually what I like to do with my units in route maps is I'll go to a certain part of the map, route every enemy in their vicinity, and then move on to the next part. But with Dazla, at the end of the enemy phase, it's going to be like 5 enemies left alive there, and he's like, well, shit, now I have to stay here and keep doing that, which is annoying, to say the least. That's my problem with Dazla usually. I think
absolutely.
You mentioned real quick. You mentioned that 11, Erica is like one of the harder maps to route, or was it 12? The monster route.
12.
At least. Yeah, 12. 12 is the hard one. I think most casual players might be thinking like, why is that so hard? Well, normally it's like if you play casually, it's not a very hard map, but you probably take 20 turns doing it. Before an LTC, it's like gross. So quick reminder.
Yeah, I mean, even casually, I think it's pretty hard because those gargoyles come in
the
and they
reinforcements
swarm
are
your
annoying.
ass.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They can be a
Like,
bit nasty.
you can easily get Tethys sniped or whatever if you're not being careful from
Yeah.
all those gargoyle reinforcements and the moose dog reinforcements.
Yeah, or your Eric gets at the starting point and then suddenly the gargoyles pop up as like, I have Saleh here and that's about it. Shit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeet.
Yeah, so there's not that much to say about Dazla, although you mentioned his unreliability, and that's something that it's funny than anything, but like, I had fun with Dazla on chapter 15 playing my LTC because I could crit rig a battle axe crit on a ranger with like solid crit and kill it, but then that bit me in the ass on chapter 12 because I was trying to grind down this steel axe to a specific number of uses, and I had to anti-rig his 15 berserker crit so that he didn't crit with the steel axe and waste one less use than I wanted.
Yeah. Can you remind me, when did you get a killer axe for the first time? Because that's the great thing about berserkers. You can like get 50-ish crit with a killer axe, but I feel like you don't get one quickly enough to make it worth.
You
for Dazla.
don't get Geb drops one.
Yeah, he sort of drops one, except he switches to it
But-
and then doesn't drop it.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to kill him on player phase
Yeah, rip.
before he can attack you, which is not very reliable to do. So I don't even know if there's a second killer axe after that. There's probably one in a shop somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's like the killer shop is after chapter 17. So if you don't get it from Geb, like, sucks.
Yeah. I think general the trend with berserkers, I feel like they're all different, of course, but with Dazla especially, it's nice if they double attack to make up for the misses, so they have like more shot at critting. But since Dazla never doubles, he doesn't really have that advantage. So if he's not
Right.
critting, he's usually not one running unless it's a very slow enemy, or he one shots
Yeah.
somehow. But he also doesn't really have the strength to one shot mages or something, which is sad.
Well, he does with one range. but
Yeah,
not
I meant with the hand axe. Yeah.
Yeah. Although,
Or the hatchet.
one more thing that I want to talk about with Dazla that I forgot is he has 16 con, which is really hilarious. Because he can take drop Dusel.
Yeah, you could take drop people across the rivers that normally wouldn't be able to cross him without like,
Yeah.
I don't know, Vanessa, but unpromoted.
Right. The flip side is he cannot be take dropped by anybody.
Yeah.
The 16 aid units in this game is like unpromoted Franz and Forde, and that's it. So he is doing the version walk wherever he needs to go.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that kind of ties into his lack of combat sometimes. I remember in 13 I would be trying to use Dazla to route faster, but the problem is when you use Dazla to take drop someone, he's usually ends up in like, enemy range somehow, which is not what you want when you care dropping like a super strong unit across.
Right.
Away. I do think he's really good against the Pegasus Knights in Selenia map though, if you can get him there, because like Pegasus Knights suck a lot, but you don't want everyone else to deal with them, so you just have Dazla do it.
That's true. I have never done that, but it makes sense that you could use him there.
If he gets to it. Same in the Desert Chapter, by the way. Those Pegasus Knights that come from the back, if you have trouble with him, you just deploy Dazla, just leave him there, and everyone else can do other things. Those kind of like little things.
Yeah. That's why he's, he mostly contributes in one map, but it's not like he's complete dead weight. He's not Orson 2, where like he does literally one map.
Yeah.
Moving on, I have Natasha.
I was wondering when she would come up, because I remember when watching your LTC, like she felt like a liability because she had to heal everywhere, but it's not that big of a burden on you to like facilitate heals on her, I guess. But she just does have to do it every single freaking time. I guess the deployment slot she takes up is annoying, and then she has some late game rescues, I think, and that's about it. Hammer.
Yeah, late game Hammer's rescues warps. There was like one time that I really like hated that I had to deploy Natasha, which was chapter 14. That was the only time where it was like, yeah, deploying Natasha is screwing my reliability over. Most of the time it's just annoying to have to find somebody to heal, and sometimes I had to like rig somebody to get hit, but if you're playing a little slower, she can pretty easily replicate Artur's staff utility. And the thing that I like about Natasha is that I hate using Artur, so I don't have to use him if I use Natasha. Because like, it's super easy to sit down with a spreadsheet and be like, all right, here's my staff uses. It's so much harder to be like, okay, here's my combat. Here's how I get Artur to level 10. But the downsides of her is like, she'll hog the men staff to get out of D staves, and you only get one until like chapter 11. So Mulder becomes harder to use if he's having to use heal and only get 2 weapon XP instead of 3.
Yeah.
And then
still makes it because he's a boss. Anyway, my doorbell. I'll be right back.
All right. And the other thing that is kind of sucky about using Natasha instead of Artur is, well, on Erica Route, she doesn't get Slayer. So that's right out. I'm just thinking about Ephraim Route right now. But there are like places where the 6-7 range matters, like I said, and Natasha is going to be stuck at 5.
Yeah.
So
Never getting more. I think for me, Natasha has always been a unit where you've been using her for a while, just casually playing, and you're in like chapter 9, chapter 10 or so. It's like, let me see how Natasha's doing. And you look at her stat screen. It's like, I'm almost at C stabs and I'm at level 3. I'm like,
yeah.
God, FEGBA, why? Why are you doing this to me? But I know 5 range warp can still be good. And I think the real value of Natasha for me usually in these kind of playthroughs in somewhat efficient context is if I can make her do something that otherwise would be done by a better staffer like Solé or Mulder, then they can do something better than that. Like if she could spend a turn hammering, that's something that they don't have to do. That's, I think, the real added value of Natasha in some chapters.
Yeah, that's a good call out that I forgot to think about. And I know I've thought it, but I forgot to write it down. It's like, yeah, sometimes you just want another C staffer, and Natasha hits that easily. And then, yeah, Hammern or Barrier in the late game so that your A and B rank staffers can be using your movement staves can be nice.
For sure. Yeah.
All right.
I think usually Natasha is just on the field for most of the maps that she's in. It's just self-improvement. I don't think she really adds a whole lot, especially when you already have another heal on the field. So it's really just about the late game, couple extra staff uses that she provides, I think.
Absolutely. You're dealing with having to deploy Natasha until chapter 16.
Yeah. And protecting her as well, which is sometimes a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me see if I can predict who's next. Because I think we did Natasha, so I would guess Null here probably. Am I right?
Oh, nope, no? You're wrong. I wondered if you'd get it. I didn't think you would. It's Myrrh.
Myrrh. All right, interesting. That's interesting. I think Myrrh was almost somehow always kind of just not on the table for efficient plays almost at all, because almost everything was just routed to be done without her. But you've already brought up a couple times that she helps with the Leon boss kill, so now I'm curious if there's like anything else to her.
Right. So first off, I just want to say, like, Myrrh is so fun to use. Yeah. I hate using Artur. Myrrh is the exact opposite.
Best unit fuel in the game, easily.
Yeah, you get like Sedgar level ups. Like every time you get a kill, she gets like 100 XP per kill, and then she gets like 9 stats off of it.
That's such a good way to put it. Sedgar level ups on an S unit.
Yeah, and she flies, and she like one-shots monsters at base. Oh, I love her.
Yeah.
But the reason that you do this, the reason it's worth it is, boss killing in the last couple maps. Because like you can just grind her so quickly in 18 and 20 because of how quick she gains XP. She'll cap half her stats, and then the Dragonstone has 124 hit and 21 crit. And it gives 20 res, and it has 16 might, and it's like 3 times monster effective. Oh, those weird numbers on hit and crit is because it gives 12 skill, by the way. So yeah, like, these late game bosses are so hard, and then Myrrh just comes and shits on them. Like, I know in draft races, it is worth it to take all the time to grind Myrrh 19 levels in chapter 20 so you can kill Leon with her, right?
Yeah.
I've seen Don do that.
Yeah. You don't have to, but it's pretty much the only reliable way to do him. And even if you train her to 20, she's not guaranteed to like survive enough of attacks of Leon and friends, because the benchmark is just that high. But usually she'll get there with the pure water and everything.
Right. Yeah, you want to like barrier her too, but she's the only person who can like survive 2 rounds of combat with Leon, and then maybe survive the Gorgons too after a barrier and stuff. And she saves like a turn and a half on Leon alone over your next most reliable boss killer there, which of course is Seth. So yeah, like,
that's nice, but it's just a very small bit, which is still why she's in D tier.
Right, exactly. The thing is, yeah, she's so helpful, but for exactly 3 combats: Morvel, Leon, Foot Mortiz.
Yeah. But at least she could train without really getting in the way. Like, what's it really matter if she stopped there fighting like the chapter 16 fighter or Myrmidon, right? Who cares at that point?
Right. One thing I'll point out is she is harder to use on Ephraim Route because you don't have Warp Solé. And I'm not sure she's really worth it here. I'm gonna wait for Chungler to like do the math and figure out, do I just use Seth for all these boss kills, or do I bother training Myrrh without Warp Solé? Because like Seth can reach Leon on turn 1, whereas Myrrh can't get there until turn 2. And then, but definitely she's still good. She's still significantly more reliable than Seth. It's just how the reset math works out. But if you're just playing casually, just like, yeah, train Mer on some monsters in chapters 18 and 20 and then solo the late game.
Yeah,
She has
honestly,
50 Dragonstone uses, and that scares some people, but that is so much more than enough.
yeah, that is the worst like unit feel bit about her. I think we had this exact discussion with Bopper, that like you feel like every time you use Mer, you use her one time less in the future, and that kind of feels bad. But still, like you said, Setgar level ups on an S unit is really good. She just turns into your Goto basically.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I relied on her heavily in my Iron Man because I lost to the Warp Staff because Mulder was holding it and he got crit. And then, so I was like soloing entire maps with Mer, chapters 20 and final basically, and she still had like 20 Dragonstone uses left by the end.
That is a lot. It's usually closer from me, but if you hold her back just a little bit, like if you're at all conscious about it, you don't have to worry about it too much.
Right.
Okay.
So that's Mer. Not too much to talk about because she's only around for a few maps, but I love her.
Yeah, that's fair. So I feel like I would still guess Null, but actually I would also throw in the possibility that the next one might be Cyrene actually.
All right, you're super duper close, but I have Garcia next.
Oh,
and then
okay.
Null and Cyrene after them.
That's fair. I was expecting Garcia to be close-ish to Dazla, so that's fair. Because
right.
I feel like it's like almost like an early game version of Dazla. Right? I think Dazla's more like a late game version of Garcia. But I like Garcia decently. But I feel like he's like a good early game kill setup unit / like wall killing maybe, like in chapter 3, and then if you just keep using him in the mid game, all you get is Garrick basically. That's it.
No, you wish you got Garrick.
Oh yeah, you wish you got Garrick. Okay, fair enough. You get like bad Garrick.
Yeah, he has 20 speed growth. So...
Yeah, I know, but like I know his speed is like if you do actually raise him, he has enough speed to do something. I guess you get more like Dusel speed.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get Dusel speed with Garrick bulk. What I say is you get Foot Kyle.
Foot Kyle. There's some people who might be into that, but not me.
Right. So yeah, like every time I tier this game, I put Joshua higher. Every time I tier this game, I put Garcia lower.
I can see that.
Like he feels like he should be good in theory because he's got like early 1-2 range and decent bases. He's got like 7 base speed, but the speed growth is so bad. He falls off so fast. He can kill Bone Walkers in chapter 4, which is actually pretty hard for non-Seths to do at that point. So that's nice. And I think it might be dependent on stat rolls, but I refuse to pull out the hard mode enemy stat script to determine like where in D tier to put Garcia. So we'll just never know. But yeah, he like holds better units. Like he has super big con, so he can pass Seth off in chapter 7 to a flyer who can drop Seth. But yeah, he just falls off so fast. He is like early game Dazla. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah. It's like some uses, but not a whole lot beyond like what, chapter 8, probably the last time you deploy him.
Yeah, or 7 even.
Yeah.
If I could tier based on green unit contributions, Garcia would be bottom of F tier.
I thought he was gonna be higher. But
no,
I guess you don't like the
why does he insist on using his hand axe in chapter 2? Why does he run back to heal below half health when he's standing on a fort?
You know, I would answer the question, but I feel like it's rhetorical, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's rhetorical. He's just really frustrating there. Like, yeah, he speeds up the map, but he pisses me off.
At the cost of your sanity.
Yeah, my Forde.
Okay.
Alright.
Now it's Cyrene time, or Null.
Now it's Null and Cyrene, and this could really go either way. I have Cyrene higher. But yeah, this could super duper go either way.
I mean, they're both just really fragile flyers when you think about it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think Cyrene's better on Ephraim Route and Null is better on Erica Route. But in a combined tier list, like flip a coin. So yeah, she joins super late, but she still flies, and it's definitely not too late for notable contributions for flyers. She has like 0% Tana stats, which is like embarrassing, but it's just good enough for what she needs to do. Because what she needs to do is like break eggs in chapter 18.
Ooh, what are the benchmarks for that?
Right. Well, 0% Forde can't do it with a Javelin.
I remember Eric had trouble doing it with that Siglinde.
Right. She like flies people across the mountain in chapter 20. And in Final 2, she can enable a triangle attack on Forde Mortiz, which is nice because he's so dodgy. But this does require making either Tana or Vanessa into a Falco Knight. I don't think that's actually as big of a penalty as you might first think. Like, everyone goes, oh, Wyvern Knight's better, and like it is, but these guys don't do enough combat that maybe it's worth it to go Falcos just for something silly like that.
I was gonna say,
extra aid.
if Tana is just a flying flunky, then it doesn't really matter.
Right.
You never really care about Pierce.
Right, exactly. So yeah, and then there's one more. This is why I think Cyrene's better on Ephraim Route. I didn't talk about this in the last video, and you know that I was depressed that I forgot to talk about it. In chapter 17,
Yes.
you recruit her. You can recruit her with Tana on turn 1 or Vanessa, and then use Cyrene to take drop Seth from Tana next to Leon. And if you gave Seth the boots, this is actually the optimal way to kill Leon on that map. Or even
Wow.
if you didn't, probably. So that's just really fun. So that's... If you have more than 5 warp range, you don't have to do that, but that's so fun, and I needed to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think her big shining moment is definitely chapter 20, Darkling Woods, because
Right.
depending on like your setup, I guess, sometimes you might not need it if you're like minimizing reliability or whatever. But there's so many more ways you can clean that chapter with an 8-move flyer that can drop things.
Right. Yeah, I would say chapter 18 is equally valuable. Like, those eggs in the top left are a pain in the butt, the ones that are like behind cliffs and shit, and just having someone fly up there and break them is so nice.
Yeah, I think with Serene you have to be a bit careful for maps like that, because she's like, sure, she can kill eggs, but she's not very good against the generic enemies depending on what they are. She can kill like a mogul, but there's some enemies that are like, they can kind of harass her and force her to like heal or something or go hide. That can be very annoying. So you need to plan for it a little bit. But if you do it properly, she's fine.
All right, and let's talk about the other flyer then.
Yes, the other flying fragile unit, but at least these ones are playing on casual mode, so it's okay if you make a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're playing on Phoenix mode, actually.
It's respawn 1 turn later.
Yeah, so they can't rescue or Kanto Phantoms, which is kind of annoying, but they can take and drop.
Yes, summoners are busted.
Yeah, and he can cover more tiles in 1 turn than any other unit. Because he moves 6 tiles, he summons, so that's a 7th tile, the Phantom moves 5 tiles, and then it attacks, so that's 13 tiles, or 12 of movement, which is even better than a Boots flyer.
Yeah, I think that way of measuring it is only really relevant for Egg Chapter, right? Because everywhere else, it's like you have to move null, and that can be, it's not hard to move null, but there's some problems with it.
Right, yes, it's only relevant on Egg Map, and maybe depending on how you use your deployment slots, it can matter on Final 1 as well. But yeah. And Phantoms, the last fun thing that I want to say about Phantoms is they can die on enemy phase. It's really hilarious to use this. In chapter 16, Ephraim or Erica Route, Chungler had this hilarious strat where he warps a bunch of dudes into the throne room that Orson's in, which is full of threatening enemies, but they're being held by a Phantom. So the Phantom takes 1 hit and drops the unit, and now they can survive the enemy phase because they take like 1 less hit from a hero or a druid or whatever. And you can also use it to distract Gorgons and Archmogols with Shadow Shot in chapters 18, 20, and Final.
Yeah, that's the main casual use I like to recommend, is to distract the Shadow Shot Gorgon. In fact, I always have the chapter 18 Shadow Shot Gorgon hit a Phantom from like just to the right tile where I can kill him next turn. Then he's just gone.
Right.
And it's also nice for the bolting stages and stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
It's great.
I used the Phantom for that in my LTC, although it was kind of sketch because there's a Gargoyle who can attack the Phantom and has Klein and Taya AI and moves 50% of the time.
Oh god, yeah, that guy sucks.
Yeah, I love that dude. Last thing to say about Null is do not use him for combat. Like, dear god.
Yeah, please don't.
He has 0 luck and low hit. I wanted to use him for combat in chapter 15 because, like, in theory, he could take on some dudes with Nosferatu, but he needed to not get crit, and then he needed to hit the Nosferatu counter, and it just made the enemy phase so bad that I said, fuck this, and undeployed Null and used Forde instead.
I mean, if the game gives him 0 luck and then puts him at level 10 and then gives him a Guiding Ring in his inventory or puts him right next to a Master Seal, what do you expect out of him? Like, the game is telling you so badly, just promote the poor guy.
Yeah. Promote him to Summoner and then never put him in combat.
Yeah. Just let his friends do the work. He's fine. I know you can one-round armor knights. That's super useful in chapter 16, Force chapter, if you're playing it casually. That's it. That's all. That's all the combat I would ever recommend doing for him. Okay.
Yeah, he can do it. Okay. Next unit, Innis.
Inez. All right. He's not far off. Somehow, by the power of elimination, we're somehow approaching an optimal tier list. That's interesting.
Right.
Inez is here. I think we talked about him after we were done talking. I think last time after we did the episode. Because he's like really bad on Ephraim Route, obviously, because he's never there, and when he is there, it's when 6 moves stops being relevant. So it's literally 1 chapter of contributions, and he's not even that good because sniper.
Right.
And then Erica Route, I sort of like him, but I don't know how often you would deploy him, because sometimes you might just prefer, like if you have to choose between Foot Kyle and Inez, I think it's something that's pretty close. Which one is better, depending on the enemy composition?
I think there's like 3 maps on Erica Route where Inez is like decent.
Yeah.
Chapters 11 and 14, he can shoot things over walls. And then in chapter 12, just like being able to kill any gargoyles, I rate as like solid.
Yeah.
He has real stats, but he is bow locked, which sucked. Right? And yeah, in Ephraim Route, he's like La Rochelle tier bad. So, and as I kind of just averaged his contributions between like where I'm putting Dazla and La Rochelle for his 2 routes, and this is where he ended up.
I can see that. I would expect him to end up lower if you did that, then, right? Because like if you think of La Rochelle's, actually you don't think of La Rochelle's as F tier, I guess.
I do not.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, in that case, yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from then. Yeah. Okay, is that really all I have to say on it? I think that might be everything.
How much is there to say about Inez, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean,
I guess his Ephraim Route contributions, he kills the mercs at base in that top right corner, but you have to be careful with his survival because he dies in like 3 hits.
Yeah, for me with Inez in 15, it's like I can kill an enemy, but I have to be very careful not to leave him in range of anything else because it's such a precarious positioning, right? Because if he gets surrounded by wyverns, or if Erica is surrounded by wyverns, you might just have to reset the whole chapter. That's what I have to like. There's like 3 wyverns that can fly at you depending on where you position your units, and if you do it wrong, like Inez and Erica just get in such a difficult position where it's like balance healing, killing enemies, and surviving. It's really annoying.
Yeah. Plus, Saleh kind of just carries you in that section anyway, because he is definitely better at the combat up there.
Yeah, so that's why I prefer to just use Saleh on a fort and just have him do it all if I can.
Right.
Anyway.
All right.
Anyway.
After Inez,
Ross?
Colm, he's not even moving.
Colm,
oh boy, you're gonna love where I put Ross.
Oh, it's gonna be low ass. I don't know. Ross is very weird. Colm, I mean, he gets an energy ring, and he might like unlock like 1 door.
And Ephraim Route, he gets a speed wing too.
Which one? The mage?
Chapter 13. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's fair. Speed wings are good because like we keep talking about how every unit is too slow to double, so that makes sense.
Yes. So yeah, he steals 2 boosters. He can like get a desert item. So there's 2 desert items you need to get, right? Boots and warp. And it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to get Grenach to both places. So you can, if you have a deployment slot free, you can just deploy Colm and then it's easy. This is, and then early game, having 6 move is valuable because like there's just so few decent move units. So like he can do some like rescue dropping in chapters 6 and 7 because he can like walk across the river from one of the deployment slots, right? Only he and Ross can do that from base because the closest deployment slot is like positioned in such a way you need like 6 move plus water walk to get across it, or you need pirate terrain data.
Yeah, 7 lines up so well for Colm because he can do that and then steal the energy ring too.
Yeah. And there's some random other maps early game. Like in chapter 8, you want to unlock that door, and you could use a Cavalier to do it, but otherwise you need 6 move, and like all your Cavaliers are busy, or your, Franz, Vanessa, Seth are busy being good units. So Colm can just walk up and unlock the door on turn 2. And even though you have door keys, a 5 move unit can't do that.
Yeah.
I kind of think opening doors and chests is a joke in FE8, so I don't rate Colm very highly for that, because it gives you so many chest keys. But so like I'm not giving him the angelic robe from chapter 8 or anything, but I think those things are enough to put him where he is.
Yeah, I think you cannot get you can't buy chest keys before then, but you can get chest keys that would otherwise unlock less like worthless stuff. So
yeah, you get a chest key in chapter 3 that normally is supposed to unlock like a hand axe chest.
Yeah, like goodbye.
Just save it for the robe if you want.
How about no? Yeah, I agree. I do hate that you cannot buy door keys though, which I think makes Calm automatically useful sometimes. But like for more like casual stuff, nothing really relevant.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
This is fine position for him. This is like we've basically gotten to units that do one or two things in the whole playthrough.
Yep. And speaking of which, let's round out D tier with a unit that does one thing in the whole playthrough.
Ross.
Orson.
Ah, yes, one thing. Well, it's like an entire map worth of
Right.
things. I guess it is a thing. A map is technically a thing. It's the whole
That is
map.
true. Orson might honestly be better than this, but it's just too sad to put him any higher.
It's
Like, that's really depressing if
he's
you
the
put
hardest unit
Orson
to raid,
higher
I
than
think,
this.
honestly, because he does one thing.
Yeah. Right. He's Seth too.
Mhm.
He has good growths.
I think Orson is S tier personally, because if you didn't have him, then you'd have to use Forde a lot more.
That's true. Yeah, but I mean, what is there to say about Orson?
It's good. Makes
Yeah.
5x shorter.
Right.
All right, down to E tier you guys go.
Yeah.
Okay, at this point we can probably just finish it off here, right? Because like there's not that many units left, and they're all not gonna like be a whole lot of stuff to talk about anyway.
Exactly. I was debating like it's not worth making another video for these
No.
10.
At this point, it's
Yeah.
not.
All right.
Crop my thing. Okay. Okay. How about I predict the order of these 5? All right.
Sure.
Okay. So I know La Rochelle's moving up to E tier. We spoiled that. I know Gilliam. I know you hate Gilliam, but there's not much competition here. Eric has some free contributions, so she can go up a bit. He's gonna be really low. She's gonna be a lot lower. Something like this. I can't be bothered to think about it more, but this is what I would
It's
do
hard.
at some points.
It's hard because basically what you were saying is this unit's bad, and moving them all down and just kind of playing musical chair.
Yeah.
But
Basically.
yeah, you kind of mind game yourself too hard. First I have loot.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. All right.
Yeah. So loot is interesting to tier because like you could literally never use her at all and be missing nothing. But as a bias unit, she actually is alright. Like if you're gonna waifu bias one of these people, rather loot than Gilliam or Ross, right? So 7 move restore is like legit helpful sometimes. There are status staves where it's like, oh, I hate lugging unpromoted Molder up to deal with this. And if you have like a mage knight with restore, that's pretty cool. And her combat is not excellent, but if you promote her, she's decent.
It's all right. I mean, I've had to deal with like loot's durability on normal mode before, and I did not have fun. Like I was using her as a draft race carry, and it definitely. I mean, if she dodges, it feels great because she murders everything. If she doesn't dodge, she dies in 2 hits to just about everything. And I think her speed is also like on that average level where it doesn't quite double everything, so it's really annoying. I do see what you're saying though. Like she's got a couple traits of like Saleh and Artur that like are always helpful to have around. It's just she's a worse version of them. But like the question is by how much, right?
Right. Yeah, she has 6 speed at base. It's technically 7, but she's weighed down by fire by 1. And yeah, you can't use her as like a carry unless you're just ready to reset every time she gets hit. But if you use her like you would use Artur, where it's like, you know, I'll feed her here and there until she promotes and then she's solid. Like, yeah, she's a lot worse, but she's at least okay.
That's fair.
And I think she's a lot better in Ephraim Route than Erica Route because there's less opportunity cost. Like in Erica Route, you really want to promote Vanessa and Artur. In Ephraim Route, it's absolutely anything goes. No one cares who you promote. So you can just use loot if you want, and then have fun in like chapter 14, dealing with the Berserk sages or the Berserk druids, and be like, I don't care about you guys. I just have restore loot.
That's funny.
Although she did get used in Erica Route LTC, for 7 move bolting, but do not do this. It was like Juan gave her a secret book so that she could 35 hit 1% crit Carlisle with bolting.
Disgusting.
Yeah. All right, that's loot.
Yeah.
Next, I have Erica.
Erica. All right. I think whenever I'm tiering Erica, I'm like, okay, either you're looking at Ephraim Route where she doesn't exist for the hardest and probably the most intensive portion of the game, or you're playing Erica Route where she does exist and she's bad. So
Yeah.
either way, that's
And
an E
she's
for
like an
Erica.
active liability for half of these maps.
Yeah, which is impressive because her deployment is free.
Right? If I could choose not to deploy Erica, I might. And like if I could just choose to undeploy her and not have the slot, I might for some of these maps.
Yeah, I can see that for like a route map, or like
Right.
chapter 12 or something. Like, it's definitely like a game over failure condition there with all the gargoyles.
Exactly. So yeah, she's almost no better on her own route than Ephraim's, except for like chapters 9 and 18. I would say are the only differences. Chapter 9, just every unit counts on that map, and she is technically a unit.
Yeah, although she's a unit that, for me, when I tried her out, she was getting 2 shot by pirates at like 30 to 40 hit, which is still like, yikes. And then whenever it's a Hanex pirate, she has to heal herself whenever she gets hit, or else it's like, and then she doesn't get to counterattack, so it's super unproductive. But she's still there, and like if she does something, then Joshua doesn't have to do it, so it's still beneficial.
Right. Or you can take on the pirates with Joshua and have Erica like chip an archer, chip a mercenary off with the rest of your gang.
Yeah, but the thing with that I found difficult, and I know there's ways to get around this, but if you're playing like unplanned, it's like, okay, if I do this, if I hit this archer with Erica, I'm fine for now, but enemy phase mecha is not going to be happy when like Forde, Kyle, and Joshua, and like, well, whatever else is there, Forde, Kyle, and Franz or something, have to surround Erica to make sure she doesn't get obliterated by enemies. So.
True. Yeah, she's not good. She kills the bandit in prologue with the dev rigged crit to save a turn, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's...
if you count that for her. And then, like, maybe you want to give her some filler combat so she doesn't die as she's standing by a throne. But do we count that for her?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that's a benefit to using Erica, but I do think there's legitimately points in your early game where you don't really have alternatives to deploying her for the most part, or your alternatives like Naomi or Ross or something, where it's like, you don't really, like, you appreciate the help a little bit. Like, there are things that Erica can do. It's like very minor things, but I'm thinking of things like fight a fighter in chapter 5, or fight the brigands in chapter 1, or no, chapter 1, chapter 2. Chapter 1 she just sits in saddlebags. Chapter 2 is when she can actually help out with, but she does need like a speed proc somewhere.
Yeah, she needs a speed proc, and I don't know how you're getting her a level before chapter 2. Or you can rig the bandit speed down, I guess. There's like, she can attack a revenant in chapter 4. If, say, Vanessa enemy phases a revenant, Erica can chip it out on player phase. One really funny Erica strat that I don't think is relevant, but I want to bring up, is the Chungler was asking if he thinks he can get Erica to see lances.
Lances?
Or see swords.
I was about to say,
see swords. See swords by the end of chapter 8, and then Lance Reaver pegs in chapter 15 on Ephraim Route.
Oh, that's smart, because usually they're supposed to be the anti-Erica enemy.
Right. And that way Saleh and Ennis can be like doing more important things. But like I haven't followed up. I have no idea if he ended up making that happen. It seems really hard.
If there's a chapter where I could undeploy Erica, where I really want to, it's chapter 15 actually, because that's the biggest problem I think in always of playing Fire Emblem 8 is just keep Erica alive in chapter 15. It's not super hard, but if you fuck it up, you have to play that whole chapter over again. It's so annoying.
Yeah, if you 3-turn, it's really easy because she can just walk over toward Kellick's group. But if you 4-turn it or more, then Peg starts spawning from there, and it's wow, now Erica's in threat.
Yeah, and the Pegs often have javelins, so like normally if they just attack Erica and they die, that'd be one thing. But if they attack Erica and they hit her and they don't get countered, you have to heal her, and then she has to do that over and over and over again. It's so stressful to deal with. So yeah, that unit. I do think late game she's like very minor uses. Same reason with Ephraim.
Erica Route. Yeah. In Ephraim Route, she's not worth the deployment slot. Although she gets free deployment in final, and
that's
just like
Ephraim,
she can do funny canto things.
Yeah. It's okay. Gotta be a bit careful, because, you know, again, she can die. But as long as she doesn't die, it's okay.
More like will die.
Yeah.
She sees combat. Alright. Next. Ross.
Interesting.
He's finally here. So here's what I have written down for Ross. How low am I allowed to put a unit who saves turns in LTC?
That's a good way to put it. I mean, I made a waifu about Ross, so you would expect him to get higher. But here he is.
The thing is, like, everything about him is so unreliable. His speed is just as bad as Garcia's, if not worse. he steals so much XP in the early game from like Vanessa and Artur. So to train him is like it destroys the reliability of not just like Ross, but also your entire early game. And like he has 50 hit. If he's using the hatchet, he has 75 hit. But what if I gave the hatchet to Garcia so Garcia had good hit instead and just dumped Ross?
Yeah, I mean it's really a fundamental question of saving turns, because he does, like, if you have him as a pirate, he can lift up Erica or Franz or whoever in chapter 7 and like help someone cut across the water. But if that's if that's all that counts, like you can't do it. It just flushes your reliability down the toilet.
Yeah, and then he saves like another turn in Ephraim Route LTC between like his chapter 11 and 13 contributions. But I think he does. Anyway, but I hate him. Like,
that's fair.
His combat is bad. The only thing he has going for him is being a Dazzler that you have to grind to get.
Yeah, because especially if you don't have him level fully, he's not going to be that much faster than Dazzler to make a difference, right?
Right, yeah, unless you're playing 100% gross. Like, even if you level him fully, his speed sucked. It's like 3 base and either a 20 or a 30% growth, and his con is actually bad, so until he promotes to Berserker, he's weighed down by hand axes significantly. It's 10 con and hand axes weigh 13, so like, ugh. Hate Ross.
Alright, BRB taking the waifu video down, I guess.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. Okay, it's 3 base, 30% growth, but yeah. Ross.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple promotion bonuses in there, but it's not very high on average in the end. It's like he's not faster than Garrick.
No. Next unit, Grenach.
Actually, all around wrong, all around musical chairs.
You were really close at one point, and then I forget what you did, but I was like, no, stop, and then it just got worse.
I mean, this way you get to rearrange them again. Isn't that the whole point of this?
That's true. So yeah, desert item. He picks up either warp or boots.
Yeah.
He steals the spear in the Hamurin and Erica route. He also steals the spear in Ephraim route, but I'm not trying to count that because he does it while he's a red unit.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Doesn't he do this as an enemy? But if in Erica, you can instantly recruit him before he gets to the treasure room. It's like the most lenient difference ever. Like in Ephraim route, it's like race to get Grenach, and Erica route is like, oh, he's right there.
Yeah.
Because he only starts moving when you open the door. So silly.
Yeah. And then he has funny res. There's a angelic robe in Final 1, and he can easily like tank his way through the Gorgon and grab it because he just survives around with a Gorgon at base for some reason. But unfortunately, it's not relevant to any serious strat of the map. I almost had to do it in my LTC, but I just rerouted the entire game to give Cormag an earlier angelic robe instead. So yeah. That's Grenach, and that is the level of contribution we're talking about, where we can summon him up in like less than a minute.
Yeah, probably good to leave it at that. Like, we could talk about his combat, but what's the point?
Right.
He doesn't really have any.
No.
Well, please tell me Lara in the right spot at least.
Nope, it's Gilliam.
God damn it! How?
Sorry.
I thought you hated Gilliam.
I do. This is I got overruled, I think, on this one.
Oh, okay, I see how it is. I see how it is.
Yeah, I don't like Gilliam at all. I would put him below La Rochelle, but also that might be Ephraim Route bias because she is better in Ephraim Route. So, yeah, he chips with like 50 hit in the early game to set up kills you want. Like Iron Lance, a Brigand, and if you miss, at least you won't die. If you use him long term, like if you're making him a bias unit, at least he's got lances, which is a good weapon type. But the best you can hope for is like a super bad version of Great Knight Kyle, who's already bad. So
yeah, I like that he doesn't die though, because at least in like chapter 9 for something, if he was like a Great Knight there, you could like put him up against all the mercenaries and he wouldn't die. It'd just be a bit worse against the mages maybe, but everything else would do so much less damage.
I mean, not really compared to Kyle. He has the same base defense as Kyle, almost joins at the same base level. He has a better growth.
Damn.
But yeah.
Alright. Okay.
Yeah, he's 9 base defense.
Lamau. I remember Don really hated Gilliam too. It's like, dude, why do you like this unit? He has like barter speed, but no defense.
Yeah. So yeah, compared to Great Knight Kyle, he's like the same unit with less speed, and he steals the Night Crest from a better unit. But I mean, splitting hairs between him and La Rochelle. If you want to put La Rochelle above just so you can say you were right, I'm cool with that.
I don't care.
Yeah, and La Rochelle is
I mean, I had her in F tier before, so I can't really say I
Right.
claim I'm correct on her anyway.
She barely avoids F tier for the dumbest things, in my opinion. She has a really good deployment slot in Final 2. So, La Rochelle, if you deploy her in Final 2, rather than being where everyone else is in the back, she deploys right under Ephraim. Because I guess someone at Insys was like a La Rochelle Ephraim shipper.
I think it's because of the cutscene, but whatever your headcanon is, I'm okay with it.
I skip cutscenes every time I play this game these days, so I don't remember what happens in that.
You're not a real fan.
Yeah, I still remember most of the plot, so I don't feel the need to remember every detail. Anyway, she has a Final 2 deployment slot where if Ephraim or Erica rescues a unit away from Foam Ortiz, La Rochelle can drop them back, and then Tethys can dance them without having to use a movement staff on Tethys.
Yeah, that counts. Yeah, that counts. That's
utility.
That's within bounds, sure.
Yeah, and also her Grenach recruitment. I'm not sure how to count this for her, because like it saves 10,000 gold, but money doesn't matter. But also on Ephraim Route, it like saves turns over having to use Ephraim to do it.
Yeah.
Does that count? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
And then theoretically, maybe she has staff utility. You could grind her up to see staves by the time you get to late game and basically replace Natasha with her.
Oh, that's smart. I think they made her unable to use Restore for Chapter 14, which I still hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
She starts with D staves. Too late to get C by Chapter 14, which is really annoying. I guess if you take enough turns on Phantom Ship, it's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you can spam Torch somewhere and then you're
like
probably
we're
good.
LTCers and we're clearing Phantom Ship on turn 5, which is when she joins. But if you take longer on Phantom Ship, she could get C staves there, and then she's better than Natasha.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's La Rochelle, and now it's time for F tier.
Wow, I really care about this tier.
Yeah, this is the fun tier. That's why it's F is for fun, right?
Yeah. I think Namie technically has legal attacks that can be helpful in a playthrough.
Yeah.
That's why I have her on
Yeah.
top.
Oh, Namie is top of F tier for sure. Now this is really splitting hairs, but it's just on join time really. She joins earlier than all these other shitters.
Yeah.
So there's a funny ballista strat in Chapter 7.
Oh yeah, that one's good. Hold up.
She has like 46 hit with the ballista, so it is not like really legitimate, but you know it's a thing that she does in a playthrough that exists. If you get her to 2020, she caps strength and speed, but like lol, grinding a bow user to 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
and she'll have 11 defense.
Yeah, that's the unit. Personally, when I talk about like fun things you can do with Namie, it's always about Namie Colm support. But you can get to C in an LTC, which is by itself an accomplishment.
That's true.
Kind of ends there though.
Yeah, it's like the Roy Lolina support, right?
Yeah. And the rest of these, like, you literally do nothing with them and you don't miss anything. Like,
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter with these, what you do. Like,
Yeah, the order I have them in it's almost irrelevant. It's super duper splitting hairs, but I have Marissa next.
yeah, I think that's fair. You can definitely argue that because she's performance at base is like slightly viable-ish for a route map or something.
She at least doesn't die at base to unfronted enemies. Right? But,
Yeah.
oh my god. So, I have a theory that intelligent systems intentionally put Marissa in the game to just be Joshua but really bad. And a woman. And see if people would insist that she was better than Joshua because of waifu bias. I obviously can never prove this, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly... Marissa is a social experiment. I have the same theory for Natasha and Mulder, but it's like funnier to mention it with Marissa because there's nothing else to say about her.
Yeah. I think the reason these units exist at all in Sacred Stones is just because the Tower of Falling exists. This game is made to like be more of an RPG, grind units up, make them good,
Yeah,
have fun with them.
absolutely. But the
Which
thing
doesn't
is,
fit
like,
within the rules of this, but you know, they're still here. They're still.
But the thing
still
is,
in the
like,
game.
even if you grind Marissa, she's worse than Joshua. Like 2020 Joshua beats Marissa in like every stat.
Yeah, like her strength growth is like 25%. I think it's horrible.
Her bases are worse, and she joins at the same level, like 8 chapters later, and her growths are worse.
Yeah, I do like how in Ephraim Route though, you can just recruit her by just getting Ewan, and then you kill the Cyclops and you win, and you get Marissa for free. Whereas
Yeah.
in Erica routes, I'm actually on that chapter right now as we're recording this. And like, I
Right.
don't know if I'm going to recruit Marissa or not, because it's a giant pain in the ass. But
Oh yeah,
I haven't
if we're
decided
being
if it's cool recruit or
vindictive,
not.
she costs turns to recruit in Erica route. So like,
Yeah.
Screw you. You ruined full recruit chapter 10.
Yeah, that, and even if you're not LTCing but just playing casually, like recruiting her makes the map harder. Not just because you have to go and get her with Garrick, but also because the moment you recruit her, you get more reinforcements.
Yeah. You have to seize like literally the moment you recruit her.
You're punished for like even trying to go for it, and like even the way there is like to deal with the stupid sleep priest and everything with like Garrick, and then has nowhere near restore staff usually. And those she starts moving the moment you cross like some kind of horizontal line at the bottom or at the near the fort basically. So actively going for her makes the map harder for you as well. And I think there's that archer in the top left corner near the starting point, right? And I think if you want to attack him, you have to cross that line. He's like bait. Like, he doesn't move or anything. It's just an archer to bait you into crossing the line and make the map harder. I really hate that big dick move. Would not recommend.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I hate Marissa. But she's funny and she's less bad than these two.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's Ewan.
Mm-hmm.
So Arissa insists on having Ewan and Amelia in a new tier below everybody else. I can see the logic because like they're even significantly worse than Marissa because they die to a stiff breeze at base and they take like 15 levels to become remotely competent. But in practice, I think it's just the difference between worthless and worthless. So I don't have them in a new tier.
I don't think anyone's gonna hate me, or well, they will probably hate me. I don't think anyone is gonna really care what exact tier they're in. I will say I don't actually hate these units. I think they're fun to use. I just don't think they work in a tier list kind of setting.
Yeah,
I think they can be fun every once in a while.
I don't hate Ewan. I do genuinely think Amelia is no fun.
That's
so
fair.
Ewan's got like decent hit and 1-2 range at base, and he promotes to something good, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you have to grind your ass off, and it probably takes more turns to get Ewan to a good unit than it takes to beat the game. But he's something. Amelia is nothing.
Yeah.
She has like 75 hit with the Slim Lance at base on Revenants. It's like actively painful, and then she just promotes to a Paladin. I wish that they gave her a Wyvern promotion, because like
that'd be sick.
Wyverns are the Grotto thing, right? Like Cormag's a Wyvern. Amelia's from Grotto. She should get a Wyvern promotion. Then I would think she was fun, but she's just a Paladin.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she's trying to take after Dusel a little bit. I don't know what she's trying to do there.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, but regardless, that is, I guess, everything. Oh, if you want to flip them on your tier list, you haven't moved Ewan ahead of Amelia yet.
Yeah, I guess. I guess I'm contractually obligated to put Amelia in the worst position ever, just because of branding, but whatever. I don't really care about these two. I do think Summoner is good, so sure.
Yeah, Amelia is good in general, so there's that.
All right.
Yeah, we really lost energy toward the end because these units are just sad. Maybe this wasn't the best way to do this.
No. I don't know. It's just it's a long recording. It's not much to say about these units really. Everyone knows, like everyone who's been watching my content for a while knows my stance on these units at the bottom, and everyone who like is just dipping in to see if I hate their favorite units and that's it. Like they're never gonna convince them. So like, what's the use in like being more elaborate about it? Like I said, these units are not here to save turns. They're here for RPG fans who like to grind characters, and every once in a while I'll do that. I used both Ewan and Amelia in my FE8 Iron Man, and I beat the game with them both alive as far as I recall, and I had a good time using them. But within the constraints of this discussion, they're not very good. In fact, they're very bad. But I guess good time for a reminder that this doesn't mean don't use these units. It just means within this rule set, these are good and these are not. That's it. That's really all you're looking at.
That's a good point. Have fun. Play Sacred Stones however you want.
Yes.
Grind in Tower of Volney if you want. I don't like playing it that way, but I'm not holding a gun to your head telling you, you must beat the game in under 100 turns or your family is gone. Oh.
I will say though, I played again a little bit today to get some background footage for the video. I still have to edit for playing like trying to play fast-ish, like I said, like a sort of efficient playthrough, but I wasn't like gonna reset over losing turns. It was more like, let me see how fast I can beat the game turn count wise without really planning anything. It's actually pretty hard. Like if you think Sacred Stones is not a challenge, try it, because it's surprisingly fun and engaging, and it turns the game into a really hard thing. Like chapter 9 Erica Route, like real quick, not to get in deep discussion, but if you engage with the entire map at once, it's actually really hard to play, which is challenging. Definitely recommend it for everyone.
Yeah, there's a reason I love this game. I understand why people say it's easy because it is. You can set solo it, but this is a game that really like rewards you and becomes more interesting the more you engage with its systems as opposed to just set soloing. And you know, there are games that like the more you think about it, the more they become a Leon solo or a Chris solo. And I think Sacred Stones is more toward the other direction.
Yeah, you can break it, definitely.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you don't have to for it to be fun. That's a good closing thought. I think we did it here. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you having you on here.
It was fun. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Yeah, I have no idea what the next game is going to be. Actually, I do have an idea. I'm just not spoiling it. But you'll see it when
Alright.
it's out. Peace out, guys. Goodbye.